Are you seriously going to invest in Adam's business again? The question made my voice waver as I sat there looking at my dad. Dad, his previous two businesses completely wasted so much of your money. I'm trying to get you to look at a real strategy, something that could actually work, and you won't even give it a thought. My father, Omar Hassan, didn't react at all. He carefully folded up his napkin, reclining in his chair as if the proposal in front of him wasn't the result of weeks of hard work on my part. Layla, I appreciate your passion, but handling business matters is a job for men. Adam requires this investment to make something of himself. You already have a secure job, that's where your attention should be. Those words hurt more than I was prepared to show. My brother Adam was glued to his phone, not really paying attention to what was going on. My father's dismissive tone didn't even seem to register with him. And why would it? He'd heard it aimed at me countless times. It was always meant for me. My name is Layla Hassan, and I'm 30 years old. As far back as I can recall, starting my own company has been my greatest desire. I've consistently been the driven one, the organizer, the one who spent hours researching ideas late at night and waking up with even more whirling around in my brain. It was more than just a simple aspiration. It was my true purpose. Growing up, I saw my father create his own business from the ground up, a logistics firm that became the foundation of our family's financial security. I respected his commitment to hard work and his determination, but above all, I respected how he built something out of nothing. I had hoped to emulate his success, but it quickly became obvious that he didn't see me as someone to carry on his legacy. In my father's eyes, Adam was definitely next in line. Even though my older brother wasn't all that ambitious, Dad always thought he was the obvious one to take over. By this point, Adam had already given a few different projects a shot and not succeeded, like an online store, an app that didn't work out, and a marketing business that didn't last very long. Each time he messed up, my father would cover the expenses and come up with explanations for why things hadn't worked out. He would say things like Adam just needs to discover what he's good at. It's all a learning curve. But as for me, there weren't any allowances made or opportunities for a do-over. He dismissed my hopes of starting my own business, saying they were unrealistic or not that important. He would advise me that I was better off just staying where I was. It's a sure thing, and you excel at it. He wasn't incorrect. I was skilled at what I did. I had advanced to a position in the middle ranks of the finance department where I was in charge of complicated budgets and evaluating what was happening in the market. However, it just wasn't enough for me. I craved something of my own, something I could grow and take care of. And right now, as I looked at my father's composed and immovable face, I understood that he would never recognize that desire in me. "Dad, you're making a bad decision," I told him, trying not to let my voice tremble. "You're letting Adam try another thing that he's not equipped to handle, and I, in the meantime, have devoted months to putting this plan together. The risk is minimal, and it can grow easily. You could see a return on your investment in the first 12 months. My father simply moved his head from side to side. "Layla, this isn't about taking chances," he replied. "It's about what lies ahead. Adam is the one who needs this opportunity." And I lost it. I blurted out as my irritation reached its peak. "What makes him so special that he gets an opportunity, but I don't? Is it that I'm simply inadequate, or is it that I'm just not sufficient?" My dad cut in, his voice laced with disapproval. "We're done talking about this." I remained still for a short while, my breathing restricted and my hands quivering slightly. Afterward, I scooted my chair away from the table and exited without saying anything further. Later that night, I found myself in my cramped apartment, just gazing at the plan I'd dedicated weeks to finalizing. It wasn't merely a blueprint, but a reflection of my soul. My vision was a specialized firm that would supply budgeting advice and methodologies to smaller companies, a fusion of my love for analytics with my ambition to assist others in achieving success. I had pinpointed a very specific consumer base, developed extensive forecasts, and also designed a promotional approach. And my father had brushed it off with barely any consideration. I felt the urge to weep, yet instead I powered on my computer. If my father refused to support me, I would find another path. Sure, I lacked the resources he possessed, but I did have my expertise, my stubbornness, and what I'd saved up. It wasn't a fortune, just enough to get by, but it was something to build on. I refused to allow his skepticism to hold me back. The following day, I rang up Yasmin, my closest confidant and the sole person who'd believed in my business aspirations from day one. "I'm actually doing it," I shared with her, my tone fragile yet decided. "I'm launching the company." "Awesome," she shouted. Her excitement felt like a burst of joy for my wounded spirit. "I'm so proud of you, Layla. You got this in the bag." "Crush it? I don't know," I admitted with a half-hearted chuckle. "What I do know is that I'm going to give it my best shot." Honestly, I can't give him the satisfaction of winning. I can't let him be correct about my capabilities. "He's totally wrong about you," Yasmin stated with conviction. "He's living in yesterday. This isn't about disproving his negative opinions. It's about proving your own positive ones." Her words echoed in my mind throughout the entire day. I realized I didn't require my dad's okay to make things happen. I simply needed to have faith in my own abilities. Starting the business proved to be more challenging than I'd imagined, even though I was prepared for a tough ride. I spent almost all the money I had saved on things like registration costs, a bare-bones website, and the most inexpensive laptop that could handle the necessary accounting programs. The table in my dining room transformed into my workspace, and basically every free moment outside of my regular job was spent setting up my company. The initial difficulty I faced was attracting clients. I thoroughly investigated online message boards, sent unsolicited emails to local companies, and even walked around the commercial areas nearby, giving out advertisements that I had put together myself. In general, individuals were courteous but made no promises. They would say, "We'll give it some thought," or "perhaps in the next few months." I did my best not to be discouraged by the repeated dismissals, though it was difficult to shake the feeling that I might be tackling something that was too big for me. At night, while lying in bed, I would go over the things my father had said. "Just concentrate on your reliable job." There were some evenings when I almost started to think that he had been correct all along. "Layla, you've got to stop being so hard on yourself," Yasmin commented one night while we were at my place, brainstorming techniques to raise awareness of my brand. So this is how things typically begin. You're essentially sowing the seeds for something. Eventually, they're going to sprout and develop. Essentially, you simply must be patient and allow the process to unfold. Yasmin had really stepped up to become my strongest supporter and a sort of de facto colleague in this endeavor. Since she worked in graphic design, when I shared what I wanted to do, she jumped at the opportunity to help create a brand identity. She put together a logo for me, gave my website a fresh look, and developed some polished, professional-looking pamphlets that gave my little operation a greater sense of validity. "I honestly don't know how I'd manage without your help," I mentioned while watching her make some adjustments on her tablet. "You'd make it work somehow," she responded with a grin. "But thankfully for you, that's not something you have to worry about." With her input, I completely changed the way I was marketing myself. Instead of trying to appeal to everyone, I decided to focus on local businesses within my area, like little shops, coffee shops, and other small places that were fighting to survive. I began offering complimentary meetings as a way to introduce myself and what I could do, and even though it meant putting in more hours without immediately seeing any money, it ultimately paid off. One customer brought in another, and before long I had a small but reliable flow of work. All the while, my family's doubt kind of loomed over me, hanging like a shadow. My dad hadn't really said anything since I stormed out of that dinner we had, but his lack of communication spoke volumes in its own way. My mom would occasionally call just to see how I was doing, but it was obvious she was just subtly trying to get updates. "How's your little thing you're working on coming along?" she would inquire, using a tone that was sweet but also condescending. "It's not just a little thing, Mom," I'd reply, even though I had to fake a smile. "It's an actual company, and it's actually succeeding." All right," she'd snap back promptly, like she couldn't wait to change the subject. "My dad's got his hands full with Adam's business at the moment, you know. Perhaps you should seek some guidance from Adam instead." The sound of Adam's name churned my insides. That venture of his, financed by my father, wasn't doing well. I was in the loop because I kept in touch with folks in the field, and chatter spread that Adam was having a hard time satisfying his backers. However, Dad kept funneling cash his way, claiming he just needed more time to make it work. One day, I bumped into Adam at a cafe not too far from my place. He was sitting there, typing like crazy on his computer, and looked completely stressed. Hey, I said as I got closer cautiously. What's up? He looked up, clearly surprised. Layla, what are you doing around here? I live just down the street, I replied, pointing towards the glass. How's the company going? He paused for a moment, his eyes flickering back to his display. It's all good, there's just a lot to juggle, you know how it is. Sure thing, I responded, not pushing any harder. Even so, walking away, I couldn't get rid of the notion that Adam was drowning. I nearly felt bad for the guy. Well, almost. Once I was back at my apartment, I dug into perfecting my plan. I began keeping tabs on everything about my business, figuring out what paid off and what didn't. I made my spending leaner, made my procedures more efficient, and came up with goals that were challenging but within reach. Each little success felt huge, getting my first client referral. During that initial month, the profit I generated was sufficient to pay my rent. Every advance I made showed me I had what it takes, despite my father's skepticism. One night, Yasmin and I celebrated my initial major achievement, securing an agreement with a local bakery franchise to handle their financial affairs and salary disbursements. Here it is, Layla, she exclaimed, as our soda cans made a celebratory clink. This is your moment. It's a beginning, I responded, my heart filled with happiness but still trying to remain measured. I started to get the sense that I was making significant headway for the first time ever. Even with the improvements I was seeing, I still faced some challenges. One possible new client simply vanished after weeks of talking details. Another canceled our agreement, choosing instead to establish their own team internally. With each event like that, I felt a sharp sense of disappointment, but I wouldn't let it knock me down. Instead, I confided in Yasmin and brought myself back to the initial reasons I embarked on this path. This isn't just about proving my father wrong, I declared during one of our late-night strategy meetings. Well, not entirely anyway. I'm doing it because I truly have faith in what I am doing. I have faith in myself, Yasmin replied, gesturing towards me with her pen, and that's what's going to guarantee your success. The moment of true change occurred about half a year after the beginning of my company. The group of bakeries for whom I'd begun working started suggesting me to their providers. Almost immediately, my email was overwhelmed with potential new projects. In a matter of weeks, I was in charge of the financial structuring and pay for 5 different smaller companies. Additionally, I had brought Yasmin on board on a part-time basis to help with marketing and public relations. Seeing things take off was truly exciting. I finally had enough money to relocate my workspace from my dining room to a shared office area in the city center. While it wasn't luxurious, it felt significant, like a real demonstration of my progress. Each time I entered that building, with its large windows and lively, inventive atmosphere, I felt a sense of accomplishment. I would tell myself, this is my creation. I was the one who made this a reality. At the same time, it was getting harder to overlook the problems plaguing Adam's company. There was a lot of talk about deadlines being missed, investors being dissatisfied, and disorganization within the company. My mom started calling more often, and I could hear how worried she was about Adam in everything she said. She would say he's dealing with an incredible amount of stress, and her tone was full of anxiety. Even though your father's doing all he can to assist him, I'm not sure if it will be sufficient to save the business. The downfall happened very quickly. One morning, as I was sitting down with a prospective new client, my phone alerted me to a series of texts from someone I knew in the same field. Did you hear what happened? Adam's business is closing its doors. The investors withdrew their funding. It's a complete disaster. Your dad has to be incredibly angry. The news had spread to my parents by the time I arrived home that night. My mom phoned, her voice a blend of alarm and acceptance. Honey, are you able to come over for dinner tonight? Your father needs to have a conversation with you. I paused, unsure. A part of me considered saying no, just to steer clear of the unavoidable unpleasantness, but I mostly wanted to confront them, proving to my dad that even though Adam's business had flopped, I was doing well. I could feel the pressure in the house when I got there. My father was sitting at the table's end, and I could see the worry etched on his face. My mother was flitting around, putting dishes on the table even though it was clear nobody was hungry. Adam was sitting in a chair, completely absorbed in his phone. Layla, my father started as I sat down, there's something we need to discuss. Instead, he took me by surprise. "I've been finding out about your company," he stated, his voice carefully controlled. For a second, I was speechless. I'd been waiting forever to hear him say that, and I was at a loss for words. He gave a nod, and then his eyes darted over to Adam, who was still lost in his phone. I thought I was assisting him by providing for his needs, but now I realize I wasn't doing either of you any favors. I could hardly believe what I was hearing, and I just looked at him. "I underestimated you," he confessed, looking right at me. "I figured Adam was the one who needed my support more. I was mistaken." "You've already demonstrated that." Adam at last lifted his head, his expression showing both irritation and shame. "Look, Dad," he retorted, his tone suggesting he was trying to defend himself. "This isn't about her. It wasn't my fault that my business went under. What happened was that the investors—" "That's enough, Adam," my father cut in sternly. "You aren't a failure, but you just weren't prepared for that role." Layla was prepared. A hush fell over the room. I watched the impact of my father's statement land on Adam, and although a piece of me wanted to feel justified, I was also hit with a small wave of understanding. I was familiar with the sensation of being overlooked, of striving to earn recognition. However, I had channeled that difficulty into motivation. "Layla," my father resumed, his voice becoming more gentle. "I'm truly proud of the woman you've become. I should have mentioned that to you earlier. You've shown me just what it means to really fight for something you truly believe in." I understand that clearly now. I had pictured this very scene for years, my father at long last recognizing my value and apologizing for not appreciating me enough. I assumed it would feel like a grand victory, like finally winning a long and difficult war. But standing there, I didn't have the sense that I had won anything at all. Instead, I felt something much more meaningful: serenity. "Thank you, Dad," I responded, keeping my voice even. "I didn't do this to prove you wrong about me. I did it because I was certain I was capable. And I'm hoping that you can recognize that as well." He nodded his head, his face betraying a heavy mix of both remorse and pride. "I do," he stated plainly. That night, when I was departing from my folks' place, a feeling of resolution washed over me, one that I hadn't been anticipating. Even though my dad's remarks couldn't erase all those years of uncertainty, they were a beginning point. What was even more significant was that I wasn't seeking his approval anymore. I had actually discovered it myself. The weeks that followed that dinner were surprisingly peaceful. My dad didn't mention Adam's unsuccessful company venture again, but the strain that existed between them appeared to lessen somewhat. Adam was still burdened by his feelings of letdown, but he started to inquire about my business, which were queries I never thought he would actually pose. He just rang me up randomly one night. "Layla," he started, and he sounded a bit uncertain. "So, how do you handle your professional connections with clients? Like, what is it that makes them stick with you?" I just about lost my grip on my phone. "Are you seriously asking for my help?" "Yep," he acknowledged it. "I mean, it's pretty obvious you're doing something successfully." I'm trying to avoid repeating my past blunders. For a second, I wasn't really sure what my response should be. I sort of felt like relishing the irony, my brother, the favorite, actually seeking my wisdom. Though I could definitely hear the genuine intent in his voice, which made me recall just how much I wanted that very same kind of approval not too long ago. "It all boils down to having their trust," I eventually told him. "You might possess the absolute best product or service on the planet, but if your customers don't have confidence in you to deliver what you promised, none of it matters. You absolutely have to prove to them that you care about seeing them succeed." "Huh," Adam remarked, seemingly deep in thought. "That does actually make a lot of sense." After the phone call wrapped up, Layla's words kept replaying in my head. Though it felt delicate, Adam showing some genuine modesty was a sign he was developing in ways I hadn't foreseen. My dad, too, started displaying different behavior. Rather than dismissing my company as just a passing thing, he began showing real curiosity, asking pointed questions about my clientele, my overall plan, and where I wanted to take things. While I turned him down in a kind way, he even proposed putting me in touch with some people he used to know. I wasn't prepared to blend my family and my work lives just yet. It was too soon. Despite that, his encouragement did resonate with me. He actually came to my workplace one afternoon. It was the first time. It was a pretty standard shared workspace, nothing at all like the huge corporate offices he was accustomed to, but he honestly appeared to be impressed. "You've really created something special here," he commented, glancing around the room. "I'm really proud of you, Layla." I offered him a smile. His words were soothing a part of me that I hadn't recognized was still sensitive. "Thanks, Dad." That means the world to me. The most significant shift, though, was happening inside me. For such a long time, I had connected my sense of self-worth to whether my dad approved of me, constantly hoping he'd see me as competent. However, I came to understand that his approval, and anyone else's for that matter, wasn't essential to me anymore. My self-assurance now stemmed from recognizing what I had already achieved, the chances I had taken, and the experiences I had gathered along the way. Operating my business was about more than simply making money or keeping clients happy. It revolved around bouncing back, thinking outside the box, and trusting in my own abilities even when I was the only one who did. Furthermore, I had shown myself that I was up to the task. As I finished up work in my office one night, I glanced out at the cityscape and reflected on how much I had accomplished. The relationships within my family were slowly but definitely changing. My dad and brother were starting to recognize me not as just the daughter or sister they underestimated, but as someone who could handle things independently. Even more critically, I was starting to view myself in that same light. The adventure wasn't complete. There were still aspirations I wanted to realize, clients I wanted to secure, and difficulties I had to face. However, I felt genuinely self-sufficient and genuinely competent for what felt like the first time ever. I was navigating this life on my own terms, and it was mine. Half a year later, my company had expanded to a point that surpassed anything I could have foreseen. What began as a solo act at my kitchen table had transformed into a small, yet successful consultancy. I had brought on 2 part-time people to assist with handling the workflow, and Yasmin had officially come on board as my creative director. Together, we were assisting small businesses in revitalizing their finances, utilizing spreadsheets and strategies. One of the moments I felt most proud was when a local business publication spotlighted me in a piece about up-and-coming business owners. They described my company as a clear illustration of success built from the ground up, and I made sure to send a copy of the published article to my folks. My mom rang me right away, with unmistakable pride radiating through her voice. "Layla, this is just unbelievable." My dad's already put it in a frame for his workplace. It felt almost dreamlike to think of my father showing off a story about the company I'd created. For such a long time, all I wanted was for him to see my worth, to view me as someone accomplished and worthy of his admiration. And now I had actually earned that respect, not because he simply gave it to me, but because I demonstrated it to myself. At family meals, there was a new dynamic. My father would ask insightful questions regarding my professional life, appearing truly interested in my responses. Even Adam seemed to have experienced a positive transformation. He had taken a job at a marketing agency, finally feeling comfortable in a setting with clear guidelines where his creative abilities could flourish. There was no longer any sense of rivalry between us, only shared regard. "Layla," Adam mentioned one night while we were putting away dishes, "what you're building is incredible. I'm proud of you." "Thanks, Adam," I responded, the honesty in what he said feeling nice and comforting. "Those words really mean a lot to me," he smiled. "Just don't get any ideas that I won't try to borrow some of what you're doing for my next gig." "Only if I get paid for my expert advice," I retorted, chuckling. However, the most significant shift happened internally. Operating my own business had imparted to me much more than simply the technical details of being an entrepreneur. It had illustrated to me the strength that comes from persistent effort and believing in yourself. I no longer questioned whether I belonged or felt like I had to defend what I wanted to achieve. I was living evidence that accomplishment isn't about who gets the earliest opportunity. It hinged on who truly capitalized on the opportunity. I remember one afternoon, in my office, I found myself gazing down at the vibrant street scene. I could almost hear my dad's voice in my head, though not with that critical edge from our dinner a while back, but with the complimentary words he'd used lately. "You've really created something special." For the longest time, I craved his validation, but I now understood that his opinion didn't determine my worth. I was the one who did that. As I secured the office for the night and started toward home, I experienced a profound tranquility. My company was succeeding, my connections with my family were improving, and ultimately I was experiencing a life that felt truly genuine to me. The journey had presented its challenges, but each difficulty had molded me into the kind of leader I was evolving into. This wasn't merely the conclusion of a single phase, it signified the commencement of something even greater. My destiny rested entirely with me, and I was excited to find out what adventures lay ahead.